I've heard a couple women do this. One woman told me that she had got a witchcraft kit,
Mhm.
and it was supposed to make a guy fall in love with her.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, did it work?" And she was like, "Well, yeah." She wasn't sure about it, but just recently, we I was at the hospital after my son's girlfriend had their baby, and I was talking to one of the nurses, and she said the same thing. She bought this witchcraft kit. She said it was a guy that she really liked, but he wasn't responding to her. And it was like months, and she was just like, I really want him. And so she heard about this thing, she ordered it, she did what it said, and she said the very next day he called her,
Mhm.
and it freaked her out. She said she hung up the phone. And so I was just like, wow. So it's crazy. We're dabbling into this stuff for love, and we don't realize, like, when you get a man by witchcraft, you have to lord over him. You have to keep him. What people who do that, manipulating women, when they do that, they have to try to keep him away from people, keep feeding him like certain words, keep doing the witchcraft, I don't stuff, the spells, whatever they do. I
Yeah.
had a girlfriend, she said that she believed her father was with a woman who was doing that. With the beat of the music, I lifted my hands and began my dance routine, giving it all I had. My hips swayed from side to side as I eased my way near the chair to work him over. Shell, no, he whispered. But I just ignored him, straddling my legs across his. My moves were passionate and intense. I felt bold and confident, and eventually I reached for his hands. My intentions were to place it on me, but he resisted. Confused, I looked into his eyes, wondering why, as he looked back into mine with an expression I'd never seen before. Right then, I realized I had failed. Well, Ebony, we made it to chapter 16, the red pumps. And the discussion we're going to have today is breaking up with the life you had in mind. So, just a quick recap. So, Michelle is dancing for Mark, and this is her way of trying to rekindle or get back what she feel like they used to have. She's realized that her bad behavior with going over and fighting his ex fiance has put some distance between them, and she thinks by doing this that she can pull it all together. But it doesn't go well for Michelle, unfortunately. So now before we get into the deep stuff, let's deal with this dance thing. Um, Embarrassing. uh, but I want to start this off by asking you, have you ever danced for a guy before?
I have not, and I most likely would not get my choreography from Beyonce. No shade, but no, not yet, at least.
Now I actually have. Um, and I have to say, like, it sounds good, like when you think about doing it, when you say, okay, I'm gonna do it. But like when you actually, it's the day, like how Shell was freaking out. That's what I remember. It's almost like all your imperfections start, to be
Oh,
highlighted.
yeah.
And so, even though like this really didn't happen, like mine didn't go that bad. It's just because of the story I wrote it in there,
Mhm.
because she is trying to get him back. And so we do all kind of things to try to get guys back. But oh my God, if I would have gotten like rejected, I would have
Mhm.
never tried it, because it's it's a lot. Unless you're a professional dancer, this isn't. But for just like a regular wife, or where you're getting your confidence up to do it, for a guy to reject you like that, oh my God, that is really embarrassing. So, but yeah, I was a nervous wreck. So I can just only imagine if it didn't go the way I had thought, I would have never tried it again. But I've probably danced twice. Um, anyway, so now the next question, there's this old saying that the way you get a man is the way you'll lose a man. And we kind of see it here because we know the backstory to Mark and Shell's linking up together, their relationship. She got him by sex, and she's kind of losing him in the same manner. Now, being Shell, if you were in Shell's position, given the situation, how would you have handled this?
Yeah, I probably would have cried, to be honest. First of all, like we have to, or I have to give Shell like her props because she waited around all night, and even at 1 o'clock in the morning when Mark was walking in, she still was like, "Oh nope, it's time to put on this show." I would have undressed myself and went to bed by like 11:30. I'd have been like, "Nah, okay," and that's my sign to not go through with it. But I would have been so embarrassed. I would have been so humiliated. Um, yeah, I've already never really experience rejection like that. So, right.
Yeah. So, well, I know me, there's, well, two me's, the mature version and the immature version. Now, back in the day when I did dance, if this would have happened to me, definitely some stuff would have got flipped over. So I would have just went bananas, like for real. And then the fact he definitely wouldn't have ate, because I don't know if you remember that part, but
Ate it.
he, went and got him something to eat. Yeah, that would have got flipped over.
Yes.
Like, you are not gonna just do this to me and then just go on, like, with life like normal. Um, but yeah, I now I would, well, for one, you could kind of feel your boo out. I think, with me being mature, you can kind of tell if your man would kind of treat you like that, so I wouldn't even do it if I felt like I had somebody who would reject me. I definitely would not. So if a man is he's very critical, and his wife tries something like this, he might as well, just, it'll probably never happen again, unless she's
Right.
just, relentless with her rejection. So now, number 3, do you believe Mark is a good man?
Based off this chapter, I definitely do. I really appreciate him just being honest because to be honest, he really could have, he didn't have to go home. He didn't have to tell her his true and honest feelings. He didn't have to sit there calmly. He could have, nowadays, a lot of people, whether you're man or woman, will kind of just wait until there's problems that are piled up and then they'll just kind of act like you guys have been having problems for like the longest time ever and they were just never happy. So I think in this chapter, we see him really standing up and actually being mature and actually handling the situation like as an adult and just as a man. Like we could have been reading that he went to his boy's house and stayed there all night and, been complaining to other women and just a lot of other things. But you know what? He actually faced his giant, it felt like his giant. And he was just like, you know what? You can tell like he didn't want to really hurt her. Like you can tell like he does have a love for her, but he wanted to just be honest and just like he said, don't want her to waste her time, and that's respect. And then nowadays you really just don't get that from relationships.
Yeah. Okay, and I guess the way I was thinking was, he almost like knew a while ago that he didn't want to deal with her. And
Yeah.
so I'm one to believe, even like with me, I'm good in some things, but I'm not good at everything. So I feel like Mark is a good father, and
Mhm.
that's why he kind of agreed to that situation. But as far as being a good man or good mate, not so, at least to me, because he knew it. And I've talked to many guys in this situation. Most guys say they know, guys know what they want.
Yeah.
And you have to think like Mark took from her, almost like it was one chapter we read, the rings chapter, where his
Mhm.
sister was saying, like, you're not going to marry her, but you're receiving her wifely duties. She's cooking
Yeah.
for you, she's cleaning for you, she's making sure, you have a good environment at home to come to, at least, a clean, place to come home to. So she wants to be a wife, and you're taking, or you're inserting yourself in that and kind of feeding into her dream.
Yeah.
And then now you're snatching it away. And because, I'm thinking, okay, so yes, she danced for him, and then he went in and ate his food.
Mhm.
Like, I think he should have just, if he was trying to redeem himself, he should have just left. Not go in there and say, okay, well, what's in here to eat? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and then too, we always, again, I think this is because we've been groomed, like you said before. We have a lot of mercy for men, but if this
Yeah.
was the other way around,
Mhm.
say Shell came home and Mark had planned a romantic dinner, candlelights, had a violist playing in the background, and she rejected him.
Yeah.
Reading that chapter that way, we would have been like, oh, she wrong for how she did
Yeah.
him.
That's
Oh
true.
my God, what she thinks she better than him? She gonna get it back. We can see it from the female's perspective of being wrong, but from the man perspective, just because, he took care of his son, which honestly, that's something he's supposed to do. But I guess because we are so deprived of a lot of men, especially our African American men, of being in the household, we just kind of glorify that. So I don't think Mark is a horrible guy, but as far as a
Mhm.
good man, in a way of being a good mate, he definitely needs to work on that.
Yeah, and I agree. I know too, we're also groomed, as women are also groomed, that men are not want to really share their feelings and emotions. So of course I was looking at it from that perspective, like, well, at least, he opened up to her. But I definitely agree. Like he knew for a while, like, he wasn't having the same exact feelings. And he did continue to basically, linger around and soak up the benefits for himself. So yeah, I definitely see both sides, but we have been groomed to, like, if a man opens up to you, that's a good man, because most guys, they don't talk about that. They don't, they're not, they will tell men that it's feminine, to share their feelings. So
Yeah. Um, Now this next question. What was the craziest thing you did to try to keep a guy?
the craziest thing I ever did was just continue to give him wifely duties. Even though I saw all the red flags, um saw him talking to other women and everything, I just felt like in my mind, oh, I can change him, or I can teach him, or get him to see my value. And at the end of the day, like, that's not it. If you don't see it from jump, and I don't think it was my responsibility once I matured to get him to see that, because honestly, he should see that from the beginning. And sometimes I can have a root back to, like, how he was raised and other women he's dated. But yeah, I definitely kept overexerting myself. And I mean, there would be days where he would wake up at like 6 a.m. I would wake up at like 5 a.m. and have like breakfast already made. I would have his clothes ironed. I would like have a love letter written for him, or like, send him a text, like just going out of my way to shower him with gifts and stuff. And I knew what it was, and I received nothing back. And, you know, I have to, hold myself accountable, basically.
Yeah. I thought about mine. I know with my first love, because it was my fault. I broke up with him. And I lied to him and said I slept with another guy, which was technically not, it wasn't true. We were at camp and we slept in the same tent. And then I wanted to be with the guy because he had a car. I was 13, 14 years old. And I just begged him back. He would not take me back. And I was hurt because I realized how much I hurt him. And
Mhm.
his friends were even saying like he was really hurt, and I was like, oh, and I really did want to be back with him. So I just begging him. But for the most part, I had a lot of pride.
Mhm.
There was a guy that I really liked. I was an assistant manager at this place called Expressly Portraits. I was a photographer in Mayfair Mall, and he was a manager at Foot Locker. And so we started dating, and girl, he was fine. He was like he
Yeah.
had a smile that would light up a room. So he was just very charming. But he was also very genuine.
Mhm.
So we started dating, and he must have got his heart broke by his baby mama, because he said, I haven't dated in over a year. And
Mhm.
so I remember he asked me, he was like, do you mind if we go and pick up my son from his mom's house? And I said, sure. So we went to go pick him up rather. And the girl came outside, his
Baby mo
son's mom came outside. And when she saw me, she started acting a fool. And I can
Mhm.
tell that it shocked him. So he didn't, because he almost didn't even know what to do. And so she was like, "Oh, I can't believe you brought her to my house." And he's like, "What?" And he was like, "Wait." And so she was like, "And then you gonna put our son in the back seat?" And so, ironically, she kind of lived in the projects, and so right next door to her was somebody I knew. So I was like, "Well, if something popped off, I'm gonna go, and have
I
my
got back
people
up.
help me," because she was actually a big girl. She was bigger than me.
Mhm.
So he went in the house. He asked me just, be patient. When went in the house, he came back in. And when we were driving to his house, he was like, I'm shocked. We have not. He was like, I swear, Sheree, we haven't dated in a year. She actually has had other men, like come by my house. So I'm confused.
Mhm.
Well, over the next few weeks, our relationship changed. So I can tell there was a distance. And so it was the day before Sweetest Day. He had
Mhm.
dropped me off at home. And he's like, well, I'm about to go home because I'm tired. And he's I work 12 hours today. And he did. So I called him like at maybe 1 or 2 in the morning just to check on him because I felt like, well, you had enough sleep. And his mom answered the phone. And she was like, well, Sheree, he hasn't been here since yesterday. So I'm like, what? So I go into work the next day and I'm livid. I couldn't wait. Like I opened up and then I went down to Foot Locker and his employees were like, they were setting up whatever they were doing. So I was like,
Mhm.
so what happened last night? He was like, oh, what do you mean? I said, I called, told him what happened. And then he was like, oh, after I dropped you off, I went to the gas station and I ran into a friend. And then, I went back to his house and we watched, like, listened to records and then I fell asleep. So I looked at him. I said, do you think I'm stupid? I
Right.
said, you know what? I said, bump the plans for today. Wherever you was, take your blank, blank, blank back there today.
Right.
So his employees were laughing. And I walked out, but I ain't gonna lie, Ebony, I was heartbroken because I really liked him. Like we didn't date long, but he was very spontaneous. He was very genuine. He was a sweetheart. And he would do
Mhm.
stuff like just get dressed. And then, I would, we would get in the car and he would we'd be at the Hilton at the Polaris. Was that the Polaris? I think, yeah. So he was very spontaneous, going to the beach. So I did really like him. So I
Mhm.
ended up like that night, but or actually that day I broke up with him. During like a couple hours later, he came to my job with some roses and he was like, I thought he was I thought he was apologizing, but he was actually officially breaking up with me. So
Whoa.
yeah, so he came with
Wo
the roses. He was like, "I'm sorry things didn't work out, but here I hope there's no hard feelings." And I was like, "Nope, there's not." But girl, on the inside, I was just dying. But I wasn't gonna let him see me cry. So when I got
Yeah.
home, I called my friend who ended up being my ex-husband, and I told him we laughed, and he's like, "Well, let me get you out the house." And so that's kind of how we ended up hooking up. It was on a
Reunion.
kind of a rebound. And then
Yeah.
I ran into the guy a couple months later, and he was like, yeah, I miss you. Can we get back together? So I put two and two together. What
Mhm.
happened was he wasn't fully over his
Mhm.
ex-girlfriend. And when she saw me, she was trying to show me, she was flexing on me. She was trying to show me how much power she had over him.
Mhm.
And so when she realized there was no more competition, she went back to her old ways.
Yep.
There was also a time where I seen her. She came up to my job with another guy,
Mhm.
and she had one of my brother's girlfriends was with her, and I was like, hey, sometimes I can be a little oblivious, so I'm like, hey,
Mhm.
girl, how you doing? I'm wondering. She looked like she's seen a ghost. It's my brother's girlfriend. She's looking like she's seen a ghost. And I was like, "Hey, girl," and I'm hugging her, and I'm like, "Why is she acting like this?" But then when they left out the studio, I replayed the scene that she was coupled up with somebody else,
Oh,
and she's
wow.
supposed to be dating my brother.
Yeah.
Yes, so, just so he allowed her to play with his heart and mess up a really good relationship because I
Yeah.
really liked him. But
Yeah.
I had a lot of pride on me, and I was also it was pride, I'm not gonna discount that, but, I also was very mature in irrationally in reasoning because I was like, "Well, if he doesn't want me, then that's fine."
Yeah.
So but can't say I personally did anything crazy. However, I've heard a couple women do this. One woman told me that she had got a witchcraft kit,
Mhm.
and it was supposed to make a guy fall in love with her.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, did it work?" And she was like, "Well, yeah." She wasn't sure about it, but just recently, I was at the hospital after my son's girlfriend had their baby, and I was talking to one of the nurses, and she said the same thing. She bought this witchcraft kit. She said it was a guy that she really liked, but he wasn't responding to her. And it was like months, and she was just like, I really want him. And so she heard about this thing, she ordered it, she did what it
Mhm.
said, and she said the very next day he called her, and
Mhm.
it freaked her out. She said she hung up the phone. And so I was just like, wow. So it's crazy we're dabbling into this stuff for love, and we don't realize, like, when you get a man by witchcraft, you have to lord over him. You have to keep him. What people who do that, manipulating women, when they do that, they have to try to keep him away from people,
Mhm.
keep feeding him like certain words, keep doing the witchcraft, I don't stuff, the spells, whatever they do. I
Yeah.
had a girlfriend, she said that she believed her father was with a woman who was doing that.
Mhm.
And she kept him away, but she, young enough, she didn't really realize or she didn't know the extent of it. But she did say this to her dad. She was like young ladies, like in her 20s, whatever. So she said, um, I'm your only child. So if you want to keep dissing me like that, if something ever happened to you, I'm putting you in a home. She said she told her dad that. But really, it was him under that spell.
Yeah.
And the woman had to keep him away from his family and keep. So men need to be careful when women are trying to cut off all relationships that are healthy. Because sometimes some of those relationships do need cutting off. But I'm saying, like with his mama, and he just has a regular reasonable relationship with his mom or with his sister, she's always keeping him away from his family. It could be that she's doing something like that.
Yeah, I know on TikTok, which is the nickname for it now is witch talk because there is so many women that get on there nowadays openly share what they do to get a man, to keep him, um, basically to just all this witchcraft they do. And I know one of the popular trends is take a cigarette smoking patch. You put it on you to help you not crave the cigarettes. So one of the girls was like, you put that on them when you're having sex, and then when he leaves, you take it off. So he has withdrawal symptoms. Um, Sometimes they, yeah, they have like oils now that women will, put in their private areas. And they say all these, you know, there's books where like the book will tell you like what to chant, what to say. And that's demonic. It's demonic, it's manipulation. And like you said, they have to go out of their way to keep that guy away from the mother of their children, their mom, their aunts, their sisters, even co-workers. Sometimes the co-workers are doing the witchcraft. And um, it's just sad. It's sad, and it's concerning that it's becoming so popular, and there's so many people like praising it and actually following into this trend, almost like real love just doesn't exist anymore. And it does, but it takes effort on both ends. But it's like nowadays people don't want to put the effort in. They just want the easy peasy, quick snap your fingers, I control you, you know type of love. And that's not the reality. So
And that doesn't sound easy to me. That sounds like a lot of work. I
it
mean,
does.
it's you might as well just pray, you know.
Right.
Yeah, just pray because it's not still not love. If you stop
Mhm.
that, if something happened to you where you get ill, that is gonna wear off because you can't keep that up. I think you age yourself, or you kind of not just age, beauty wise, but like internally when you're
Yeah.
doing all of that, when you're lording over a whole another human being, that's a lot of work. I would rather, and then too, because I've experienced the real love of God, it's actually easy to
Mhm.
get. It's just a matter of sitting still, asking Him to come into your life and show you His love. And I've had moments where you can just feel His love, and it wraps around you, and it lasts so much longer.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. Jesus, we definitely need help because
Right.
that's bananas. Like
Mhm.
I just can't even imagine doing that. Okay, so this um next question. She had an image of her life, the life she wanted. So in this
Mhm.
chapter, we kind of see it falling apart.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to swallow the pill of having to break up with the life that you had in mind? And if so, like what was it, or how did you handle that?
I did. Actually a few times. So the first time was I had this image that when I graduated high school, I was gonna go off to college, probably get in a sorority, party, go to college, and just have like this amazing life. And there was quite a few bumps in the road when I went off to college, and there was a few challenges that I faced, and I had to submit myself to God then because I really was trying to do it my own way, and I ended up almost homeless doing it my own way. And then two, when I became a mom just 2 years ago, of course we all have that image that we want our family, we want our child to be, raised in a household with both parents. We want the white picket fence, and that was not the case for me. Even though I made the decision to walk away, I still, in the back of my mind, kind of had this image like, oh, God can use me to change him, and got to bring our family back together. But I had to learn to just really, again, submit my flesh and everything to God and trust Him with my life, my future, and my son's life and future, and trust that He knows what's best. He knows what we need, as a man and as a father, and just as a family as a whole. And it's not easy to accept that your image of what you thought or what you wanted for your life is not always what's best for us. It's not always what's best. Sometimes we will cut ourselves short of blessings. Like you said, we can age ourselves. Spiritually, we might be messing around with a guy that really isn't meant for us, and that can really cause hindrances, delays. It can bring generational curses and open up doors and all types of unnecessary stress. So, um, I've gone through it a lot, but I thank God that, He's kept me in His peace and gave me a mind to understand. Like the Bible says, we're supposed to be transformed by the renewing of our mind, and His thoughts are not our thoughts. He will always know. The Lord will always know what is best for us and what we need, because we may think we need something, and it's not. Sometimes we don't necessarily need it, or we don't need it in that exact, picture frame. It might be just a different frame. So,
Yeah, I definitely have to say where I am now, I wouldn't have imagined it.
mhm.
I thought by now I'd be rich because I have a lot of talents. And so,
Yeah.
but then living for God, when I got divorced, I thought, okay, I'm finally going to take off with my photography business.
Mhm.
And I felt like God was saying, no, don't do that. Start writing, And so I'm writing books and thinking, oh, okay, it's going to be New York's bestseller, and still nothing yet. So I definitely, have gotten here, and I'm just
Mhm.
like, God, this doesn't look anything like I had in mind. Even my family, because I have a bunch of brothers and I have two sisters.
Mhm.
So, when I was a young wife, I made sure we stayed together. And I guess I never even really thought about it. I just assumed, we'd be close. And after my dad died, it just got ugly. And I realized how unhealthy we were. And, and I have to kind of reintroduce myself to them again because a lot of it, I didn't know what I was doing. I just was doing my best. I was trying to give them what I knew our parents weren't gonna give us, at least my, dad on my dad's side. So it just does not look like I had in mind. And even, at this point, my daughter's relationship, definitely still praying on that. But, I've put a lot in my kids on purpose.
Mhm.
And, I just was, going with that train a child up in the way they should go. When they get old, they shall not depart from it. And I just, I was just have faith like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. My kids are going to be this and that. And nope, I had to let go and let God. And that's
Yeah.
not as easy as it sounds, but had to realize that I had to break up with what I had in mind for their lives
Mhm.
and realize that God has a plan for them. So it was a lot of divorcing certain thoughts and certain images and certain expectations. And so I feel like back then I felt like I had it together.
Mhm.
And being here now, I know what it means to trust God.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an easy process. It was letting go and letting God and holding on to Him when I had these images I was holding on to that gave me a sense of security. And when those blankets were taken away, it was just like, well, either I die or or I grab onto you, Father. And so
Yeah.
definitely it does not look anything like I imagined.
Yeah.
Um, and even my marriage, even though I'm not that busted up about it, because I realized that, and I'm not trying to shade anything, it was just that I knew in the beginning, I didn't have the wisdom to know the depth of my decision. And I didn't realize it was the Holy Spirit speaking to me. But there were signs and warnings not to get married.
Yeah.
But I did. And so, but because I had faith in it, I thought God was going to turn it around. You're going to turn it around.
Yeah.
And He didn't, so, but I've learned a lot from that. I have to say I grew spiritually in all of this. However, I still don't have, my hands are not filled, but I have more wisdom.
Yeah.
And wisdom is, the word says wisdom is it the main thing? Wisdom is the main thing. It's something like that. Wisdom is
Mhm.
I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, that's where I am. Uh, Now I do want to conclude this. Was there anything you wanted to add to that?
I do know that a lot of times we as human, and I think it's just human nature to, kind of have our own image. Because even when you start off like with kindergarten, first grade, they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to like when I remember when I was in school, they will always have this question at the beginning of the school year, the middle of the school year, and the end of the school year. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Where do you see yourself in 20
Yeah.
years? So again, there's grooming behind that. And there isn't, and I went to Christian schools. I went to a Catholic school, Lutheran school, and in none of these schools were they teaching us to submit our ways to the Lord and stuff. And I get you want a child to, of course, pick a career, have like a end goal or a goal for life, but there's a lot of grooming behind that because at the end of the day, we can have as many goals as we want. You can have as many college degrees as you want. If that ain't the path and the will that God has for you, it's there's only so far you can get, through that. But I know it's human nature for us to put ourselves in situations, whether it's in relationships, get into certain financial situations, and sometimes we'll see the red flags, or we just won't always be obedient, to not going through because there is red flags, and then we'll go through with it because our flesh, well, I want it. It makes me feel good. I have this title, blah blah blah. Oh, I look good. He's a good man, blah blah blah. We make up all these reasons, and then we'll be like almost expecting, almost demanding God to bless it. And I'm sure the father be like, I didn't tell you to get in that. I didn't tell you about it. I didn't tell you to get in that relationship. So again, it's human nature, but there is times like we will get ourselves into something and expect God to bless us just because, okay, God, I have faith in this situation, like you said. Um, and he's gonna bless, the will that he has for us, of course. So
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing as children. I think the parents, as us as parents, we need to train them to understand God has a plan for you,
yeah,
although the world will encourage you to make plans for your life.
yeah.
But that finding out, discovering God's will for your life, I think that's the better approach
Hmm.
because then you're not doing all of this stuff
Right.
and then you have to divorce because I think a lot of our disappointment comes from the world shining their beacon of light to say, hey, this is where you get happiness, because at the end of the day we're all looking for love, acceptance, and peace.
Yeah.
And all these things, if you get skinny, we think we'll be accepted, we think we'll find love, but there's tons of pretty skinny people who are still struggling with the same issues that we have. And or if you have this career, you'll be, finally be accepted by your family and be known as or have peace, you won't have any problems. And that's not true. The principle, more of this is more of that. Another way of saying that is much is too much is given, much is required. So, all these principles that God has in the earth that the world contradicts. And
Hmm.
so, when we come to Christ, the church has even sold us this idea that he's this genie, like you just go to him and say, hey, this is what I want, and give it to me, and never even look at him to ask him what he wants. It's just all
Exactly.
about, me and what I can get.
Yeah.
So, that's the most difficult thing. But as a unbeliever, you can kind of pretty much do whatever you want to do, but and you still, we still face disappointments because it rains on the just as well as the unjust.
It does.
So we're not ever, the Bible didn't never promised us that we weren't going to go through trouble. We will go through trouble. We will have disappointments. Things won't turn out the way we expected them to. You raise your kids. You don't, they said, somebody told me this, water all your seeds.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't, because don't know what will grow up. A lot of times we have faith in this, if I put my everything in this one child,
Hmm.
and then they grow up and they don't have nothing to do with you, or they turn out to be a handful and you should have watered other seeds, meaning that it shouldn't have just been yours.
Yeah.
A lot of times, sometimes it's the people that you reach out to. I mean, you pour into this, your child's friend, they come by and because you poured into them and they didn't have anybody to pour into them, outside of you, they appreciate that, and they may be the ones who might be there next to you at your death, when you're transitioning.
Hmm.
So, learning to just give out your love everywhere. Again, that's that watering all your seeds because you don't know what will grow up. And just doing it God's way is
Hmm.
more secure. And so we just kind of need to break up with our expectations when we come on this side to know that nope, God has a plan for us. And a lot of times we are unaware of that plan and we have to discover it.
Yeah. And one thing, my grandfather, he's a pastor for many years. One thing he's always told me all of my life, which I have never understood up until recently, like maybe about a year ago, you take care of God's business and he'll take care of your business. But we have to submit ourselves to the Lord. You have to, okay, God, just like you said a few moments ago, we expect God to bless us, but we're not asking God, hey, Lord, how can you use me? He might need us to go feed the homeless. He might need us to just go down to the rougher parts of the city and just spread the gospel, encourage people, lay hands on someone. He might need us to just call an enemy of ours and be like, hey, you know what? No hard feelings. Can I pray with you? If there anything that you need to talk about, it's not easy. I mean, a lot of people don't understand like the fight that we face is not, flesh and bone, is not carnal, it's, spiritual. Um, so if you keep that in the back of your mind, it can be a little bit easier to help others, even if it is your enemy or somebody that hurt you, or maybe even somebody that inappropriately touched you. It's not, may not feel good right then and there, but we still, as believers, as kingdom individuals, as God's children, we still have to go out there and help his other children. We're all his children. Some are prodigals, some are not. But he needs, just like the devil uses people and uses vessel, God uses people and vessels too. So I really believe, like what my grandfather has been telling me for years, you take care of God's business and he'll take care of yours. Like you said, he might need you to be another role model, or parent for another child that does not share the same DNA and blood as you, but he's going to take care of your children too, if you have that heart for his children.
Yeah, and then to even know or understand or really believe that we're not fighting flesh and blood, that we are really fighting spirits. I was actually on a like a Zoom meeting last night. I do it every week Wednesday after church or the Bible study rather. And there was a young lady on there, she's new, and she was just sharing with us her struggle. And she says she's known, her reputation is known to flip off. Like
Mm,
she's even in her professional at work, she has a professional job. And she
uh-huh.
said, it's just something in her that will flip off on somebody. If you ready to go, come on, let's go in the parking lot and
Mm,
fight. And so we were ministering to her yesterday, and it really was a deep wound. Like she was like, I want to get back to the person I used to be. So we're not like a lot of people who are acting now who, oh, you can't stand. And this helped me too, even for, like I'm having some issues with my boss to
mm,
realize it's not her. It's, it's a
yeah,
spirit, and to really tap on into my prayer life, back into it. Because I was, it's just that I kind of got a little off with praying and getting more into my emotions. It's
yeah.
like I used to pray, quickly, and now it's like I gotta complain.
Me-
So I'm getting back to remembering, like, no, you're fighting the wrong way. And
yeah,
just covering people because they really do have deep, deep wounds. And I'm telling you, she had some deep wounds. And so a lot of times the people who seem to be the meanest are the ones with the biggest hearts. And it's just
yeah.
that they've been hurt so much that now this is how I see it, because this is how it was with me. I had a big heart when I was growing up. And so it's almost like I was born into a family of manipulators, selfish
Yeah.
people, molesters, and people who got in incest, like all my dad's side. So I'm this little girl with this big heart, and I'm loving all my family, and they just crazy.
Yeah.
And so it got to a point like they would take money from me. So it got
Wow.
to the point where this altered ego, this, I call her Ray Ray,
Mhm.
she I don't even know when she was born, but she protected me when I got off. So a lot of people there's that scripture that says God is close to the hearted, and he saves the crushed in spirit. And so, but there's also evil spirits that are nearby promising to comfort you and defend you too. So
Yeah.
a lot of times we pick up that we mute the voice of this Holy Spirit because this one is loud and saying, look at what they're doing to you. And a lot of
Mm,
times we give them power. Anytime somebody hurt me, we let them step in. And after a
mhm.
while, they begin to take over our lives. So, like the young lady who was popping off, I had to tell her, look at that thing as almost like an intruder, a trespasser. They're promising to protect you, but really demons want to be seen. Those
Mhm.
wicked spirits, they want to be seen. So they're using your body, because a human body is to have a body means that you have the authority on earth to operate. And
Yeah.
so they can't operate without a body. So they're
Yeah.
promising you this, oh, I'm going to protect you, but really they're trying to operate through you, their
Yeah.
spirit. And so I was just saying, anytime that comes up where you're trying to fight, remember that ain't you. The real
Mm,
you is that little girl that you used to be.
mhm.
And you got to get back to her, and you have to allow God. Now it's being under new management, asking God to come in and help protect your heart, because
Yeah.
that thing is not, it's going to mess you up. You either going to be in jail or in the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Demons definitely have missions and assignments, and there's nothing positive about anything that they want with our vessels, and any mission and assignment that they do have. And it's important to guard your heart, like you said.
Yeah. So is there anything that you would leave, or any advice you would give to someone who's really struggling with letting go of what they had in mind?
Mhm. I would say, of course, spend time with God, read the Word. Psalms is one of my favorite books, Psalms, Proverbs, but definitely spend time with God and learn his voice, learn the voice of the Holy Spirit so you can discern, like, okay, are these demons that's just trying, like you said, demons are loud. Um, so once you know God's word, he's going to handle all your enemies, every hurt and pain. God can go back in time and heal wounds, you know. He can go back in time and heal trauma. Put your faith and trust in the Lord. Pray more, and definitely be mindful of who you are spending time with. Because like I said, the devil definitely uses vessels too, and he knows when you're trying to get away. He knows when you're trying to heal, be set free, and do better, and he will use people closest to you. So be mindful of that. Get around like-minded people, and maybe even corporate Bible study, or there's a lot of really good books out there, that incorporates the word. Just like there's a book that I was reading when I was going through pregnancy, and it went through the different phases or the different months of pregnancy, and it also had like a word to go go with it. But yeah, stay strong, but pray for God to give you His strength and put on your armor daily. It's not an easy battle, but God has you. Once you trust that you are covered under the blood of Jesus, no weapon formed. So even if, even if things don't go the way that you plan and you imagine, trust that God has something better, and that's so true. He always has something better. He always has something better. And it's interesting because there's been so many times I've been blessed in my life, and the blessings that I have received, I would have never imagined in a million years. Even though, like you said, I thought I would have been rich, I thought I would have been Beyonce's twin and all this other stuff, but by then, but there are some blessings that I've received. Well, every blessing that I've received, I would have never dreamed of, and my son is one. So,
Yeah, and I definitely know, for those who don't have a relationship with God, or who, don't believe, you do have to come to the end of yourself, because he's not going to force a relationship on you, force himself on you, but you have to come to the end of yourself. And I would say if you don't, you'll end up usually getting bitter, because a lot of times we like bottled that stuff up, and bitterness will turn on you.
yeah,
Bitterness will cause even health issues, and so I think living in bitterness and rather than betterness shortens your lifespan and the
hmm
quality of your life. But for those who decide to put their trust in God, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to destroy you, to bring you to an expected end. One of the hardest things was for me to do was to let go and let God, because I was always a planner. Like I didn't have a stable home growing up. I didn't have parents who gave me structure. And so I did, when I became a young wife, I did, or young mom, I did. And so that gave me a sense of security. So being where I am, or getting to where I am today, where I'm trusting God, I'm not gonna say I don't know where I'm going. He showed me things, but I can't map it out. I'm trying to hear his voice so he can lead me there, because I would have definitely went a different way. And I'm a person who loves projects, because I like to see, okay, give me step one, two, three. I'm a process person. So this
hmm
is challenging for me. And I also had to learn not to watch other people's lives.
yeah,
God has us all on different paths. And so, even to insert I'd like to share my stories, but I don't like to say, well, God is doing this in your life because he did it in my life. I have no idea what he's doing with you, because I know with me, my issue was self sufficiency. So he
hmm
had to teach me how to trust in him, where it could have been somebody else who was always trusting other people. And so they need to learn how to have more confidence in themselves. So I'm learning that too. Like, this isn't a one size fit all. He has many different children, and you have one, but I've had a couple, I have two kids that I actually biologically had, but I've raised a bunch of kids. They all have different
hmm
personalities. They all have different things they struggle with.
yeah,
So our lives are not supposed to mirror each other. He's
Yeah.
working on, so he's building our character. He's working on certain things in us. He's building, our trying to help us build our skills and things. And because he has a purpose and a plan for each and every one of us. So try not to compare yourself, because somebody's what looks like success in somebody else's life may not even be success. A lot of times, what we glory over, God is not pleased with.
Yeah.
So people you're applying, oh, they're so successful. You don't know that they probably disobey God, and
Mhm.
you can have success with you can have success without God. It's
Yeah.
possible to have success. Success to me is just saying you're going to do something and then doing it. It's what he showed us in the beginning. Let there
Mhm.
be, and then there was. It's operating in that. And so we can either do it for God or we can do it for our own selves. And a
Yeah.
lot of times we say we will ourselves, I'm going to do that, and we do it. That is success, but is it good success? The Bible mentions that, that there's good success. So that means that there is one that it's not. So just focusing on you, you and God, and figuring out, God, what do you have for me? God, what is in me? What do I need? What is my weaknesses? And what is
Mhm.
my strength? Strengths. And I want to kind of put this out there too for um, people who are looking for wives, and looking to be wives, that a wife is actually a helpmate for a
Yeah.
guy. And so a lot of times, like you mentioned, how you were trying to would get up at 5 in the morning and cook for the man, and he wasn't even reciprocating anything back to you. A real wife is a she may irritate her husband,
Yeah.
because she's a helpmate. So like we got to understand this. God is not, you don't need help in the areas that you're strong in.
Mhm.
So what kind of comes across to men as nagging is the wife helping him to do the very thing he said he was going to do. So if he said, oh, I want our business to be successful, he can't be laying on the couch. The wife is going to say, babe, you got to get to the office. So oh, you nagging me. You're actually messing up your help.
Mhm.
She's going to help you in those areas that you struggle in, and vice versa. You should be, as a man, saying, babe, you shouldn't talk to the kids like that.
Yeah.
So being a helpmate, like, so we glamorize marriage, because a lot of times that's what we're looking to be chosen and to be wives and stuff. We glamorize marriage, but doing it the way God intends on us doing is to help in the areas where we're weak in. And so we have to be able to trust our mates,
Yeah.
and they have to be able to pour it back into us, because if they're not concerned about us, how are they going to they're not going to care. They're just going to be It's going to be all about what they can get
Mhm.
to make their life convenient, and that's really not a true helpmate. You may just be a filler,
Yeah.
not necessarily a wife. And that you can feel, after a while, you're doing all the duties, and he's getting what he wants, but he never seems interested in giving you anything you want. You're going to be able to feel that after a while, because you're just going to be giving and giving and giving and giving, and we need reciprocity. You have to give back to the thing that is giving to you. Otherwise, that thing will eventually be depleted.
Yeah. That makes sense, and that's really good. I know that's something my grandparents have been working with me on, is what a wife really is, because this world will shape our thoughts of what a wife is, and it definitely will have you thinking that it's just the cooking and the cleaning and doing the inside of the house stuff, but it really is being a partner. It is really is, and I know for those of us who are believers, covering your husband too. He might be going through something, spiritually, and you may need to be his partner, and his, pray for him, even if he's asleep. You might know, you might sense, you might have a dream or something. You have to be there to help in that area as well. It's not just making the pancakes.
No. And even like it was one of my girlfriends, she was saying her husband liked to be affirmed. Like, so if he did something, like take out the garbage, he wanted her to say something. She was like, I'm not raising him. And I was like, girl, if all he's asking for you to say, babe, look at you, you taking that garbage out. I said, do you know how easy that is? And so I said, you're leaving yourself open for another woman to come and clap for him. And then now he's looking at her.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we say we don't want to, I ain't raising no man. Now I do. Okay. I'm going to tread lightly with that. No, you should not be telling him to go work and take care of himself. We
Right.
should come in as partners, but I'm saying a lot of times we're called to minister to the little girl and the little boy in each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not just we're helping um to do the things that are hard, but we're also helping to be the blessing. We're allowing God to allow us to love our mates. For him to love our mates through us.
Yeah.
So being able to minister to the little boy. So, if he wants you to say, oh, look at your muscles, babe. Look at you flexing it. That don't take nothing, but I mean, little effort. So women who have that mindset, I ain't raising no man. I mean, I ain't raising no man. Now, like I said, being careful because he shouldn't be sitting on the couch while you're working. But I'm saying like just being able to pour into him and encourage him, and it's that stuff that's wife duties. That
Yeah.
is husband duties. That's a partner. Hey, Rock family. You know, sometimes certain topics can trigger old emotions. So, if at any point during this head trauma discussion season you feel you need to talk to someone, please do. And for some reason, if you do not have access to a trusted source, feel free to check out some of our recommendations by visiting www.rockwithmenow.com. Once at the homepage, select the Rock Challenges tab, and then filter through the list available to see what may possibly suit you. Hope you enjoyed today's show. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Oh, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you.